Hello everyone, Alec Elger the SideQuest Gamer here, and because I'm very fond of the Game Boy's library of games, I decided to make another top 10 list video. You know, get footage from 10 of these games, edit them together in a video, release the video, and hope people like it. The Game Boy was quite the revolutionary handheld upon release in 1989, and for around 10 years managed to evolve its game library from portable 8-bit games with an arcadey design mindset to 8-bit games with a 4th generation console game design mindset. Despite several companies wanting to throw their hat into the handheld market, with the Sega Game Gear doing a fine job offering games that the Game Boy didn't have or couldn't have, it still didn't come close to the 128 million units sold this handheld managed to achieve, probably because it had a longer battery life than its color competitors. So to celebrate the legacy of the Game Boy, I want to talk about 10 games I would recommend to new players, some you probably heard of while others not so much, and as always I will include one game per series, not necessarily a franchise, because Mario and Pokemon tend to have excellent games that span several genres. And if you're expecting Pokemon Red and Blue, Metroid 2, or any of the Donkey Kong Land games to appear on this list, you may be disappointed, but if that's not a deal breaker, let's get started, shall we? Number 10. Mario's Picross. If I can sum up this list, it'll probably be Mario, 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 because that's what the Game Boy's notable titles seem to have. But really, Mario has little to do with it. He's just there to sell copies, simple as that. As malicious as that sounds, I don't think people who were quote-unquote fooled into buying the game were disappointed at all, because the Picross franchise is a very solid puzzle game series. The goal is to simply analyze the numbers on the vertical and horizontal sides of the box. These numbers tell you how many times an indent is connected before a space, and the goal is to not make an indent in the wrong place too many times or you'll run out of the given time to finish the picture. But it's pretty rewarding just to finish a picture and see it smooth out, and there's so many pictures to fill. This is what I like to call a bus ride game because of how much of a pick up and play experience it is. You play one puzzle whenever you want if you just have 10 or 20 minutes to kill. It's not like it's a game you have to marathon, although sometimes I enjoy doing several puzzles at once. But this game allows you to challenge yourself at your own pace, and for that alone, it's worth your money. Please check it out if you're interested. Number 9. Dr. Mario. See what I mean by how frequent Mario is present in a lot of these Game Boy games? If it has Mario in the title, it sells. But this is quite a popular game among Game Boy owners because it's a really fun puzzle game. It's kind of like Tetris, well more like Tetris 2, where there's a set amount of viruses, and as Dr. Mario, who is not only a plumber but now a doctor, you have to match the corresponding colored pills and get the 4 colors to combine in order to eliminate the viruses. But a lot of these pills have 2 different colors, so much so that you have to figure out how to eliminate one virus with one side's color while having the other color fall onto another virus of its corresponding color. Sometimes pills stack and you have to stack their corresponding color pills to get rid of them. It's 4 in a row may sound simple, but it's never a boring game as there's always something going on every minute. And because of its addictive nature, I'd recommend it to the self-respecting puzzle gamers out there. I just hope to never become a patient of Dr. Mario because whoever he's treating must be more drugged up than Keith Richards in the 1970s. Number 8. Operation C. I really like the Contra games. I suck at them, sure, but that doesn't mean I'm not allowed to have fun with them and claim I like them, and Operation C is a fine game in that aspect. Now, it's a little bit easier than the console game since everything's a little bit slower, and it does feel like a watered down version of Super C at times, but it's still a great time because despite being a little bit slower, there's still the challenges of enemy turrets and troopers shooting projectiles at you at every turn that you have to use your ninja reflexes to avoid, and that is easier said than done. As a game in its own right, the level design and bosses feel pretty fresh despite taking a few pages from its inspiration like the top-down sections, and it's really nothing you haven't seen before, but if you're a fan of Contra games, that wouldn't really be a problem. If you're in the mood for a challenging game, look no further than Operation C. There's also Contra Alien Wars for the Game Boy that's also quite good, but the sprite flickering and slowdown of that entry makes me recommend Operation C a little bit more than Alien Wars. Number 7. Mole Mania. Forget Sonic Mania because this is Mole Mania, bro. Okay, that was cringy. When it comes to Nintendo, their fanbase will eat up any quality release. In these past few years, new IPs like Splatoon have seen an enormous amount of success, and people are really digging ARMS. Same can be said about old IPs like Clu Clu Land and Ice Climber. Just appear in one Smash Bros. Games as either a trophy or a set of playable characters, and now many people make them out to be a household name. But then there's the forgotten quality games like Star Tropics and Mole Mania. I don't know why this one's forgotten about, because this game is so much fun. You play as a mole traversing not just land, but also underground with the goal to reach the end of this little maze. And given the mole's ability to grab objects, there's just so many things to do in these sets of mazes, and the game never feels boring as a result. Even the bosses make the most of the mole's given abilities. At the surface, no pun intended, it may look like a simple, dumb little time waster. It stood the test of time pretty well, and it's not too expensive to find either. Plus, evil Yoshis are always a good enough reason to play a game. You don't see that every day. Number 6. Mega Man 5, or V, whatever you call it. Classic Mega Man has quite the fanbase as it is, I being a part of it, although more often than not they talk about the more popular console versions. Not that the Game Boy classic games aren't talked about at all, they're just lesser known. But if they are mentioned by either YouTubers or Game Boy aficionados, Mega Man 5 is the one that's brought up the most often just because of how much of a departure it was in comparison to the last 4. You see, the previous 4 Game Boy Mega Mans reused Robot Masters and only added a 9th Robot Master and a new final boss, even including different stories. However, Mega Man 5 is the most original of the bunch thanks to the inclusion of all new Robot Masters named after various solar system planets, as well as a really solid soundtrack. I mean, of course, Mega Man games have always had good music, but you just have to keep up the praise as long as it's still good. Mega Man 5 is a worthy conclusion to this sub-series. It's easily one of the best games in the classic series and one of the best Game Boy games, and you get a robot kitty to help you out. As a cat person, I approve of this. If that doesn't make this game unique, I don't know what does. Number 5. Donkey Kong 94. The original Donkey Kong was a groundbreaking arcade game when it came out in 1981, but as it is today, it's really short. Now, there's nothing wrong with that at all, but at the same time, I crave something a little more meaty, and Donkey Kong 94 does that perfectly. I describe this game as a puzzle platformer where all the platforming you have to do is possible with the tools you're provided in the level itself. The game starts out as a recreation of the arcade game, but the rest of this game lets the player pursue Donkey Kong in each level needing a key to unlock a door. The puzzles get progressively more challenging as new enemy types as well as the key locations makes the level trickier, and every 4th level we have the opportunity to try and rescue Pauline while avoiding the obstacles the Big Ape throws at us, and every last world would be a boss battle against Donkey Kong. With each level being timed and having you form ladders and form platforms wherever you choose, this game is a lot of fun to play through, and thanks to the variety of obstacles in addition to a well-paced difficulty curve, Donkey Kong 94 I dare say is superior to the arcade game in every way. Well, except for color. Number 4. Tetris. I know, how cliche. The best-selling puzzle game is on this list. Do I really need to try and convince you to get this game? It's Tetris. Well, I do need that ad revenue, and I have your attention for this video, so yes, I do need to. The goal of the game is to get the high score by controlling the descending blocks, fit them into a row, and they'll disappear. The more rows you can make disappear at once, the higher your score is. But due to this being a never-ending game, you don't win, you just do a little better every time, as Cleveland Brown from Family Guy would say. The reason this isn't higher on the list is quite simple. I find this specific version to be outdated, where there are much better versions to play out in the market. It is the same old Tetris, meaning it's near perfect, but I find the black and white visuals as well as the block designs to be kind of boring, especially in comparison to the NES and even the SNES version of Tetris. Yes, it's a nitpick, I fully acknowledge that, but Tetris has always had the highest of quality standards, so any complaints about it would be a nitpick. Unless you somehow screwed it up like one company did recently. Anyways, if you're to play this version, you're either a collector or just appreciate the novelty of the black and white visuals. I can understand that. Regardless, you wanted some of the best Game Boy games on this list, and Tetris, despite being one of my lesser favorite versions, is still a great Game Boy game. In fact, I do go back to this one often, all complaints considered, but not as much as these next three. Number 3. Kirby's Dream Land 2. Kirby's Dream Land was a simple little game having only 5 levels and could be beaten in half an hour. Problem is not with the game itself, but how it compares to future installments, since Kirby lacked his signature copy abilities. Kirby's Adventure, the sequel for the NES, did set the series standard thanks to the addition of the copy abilities and vibrant, gorgeous levels. It also takes 5 hours to beat, meaning you are getting your money's worth. But Kirby's Dream Land 2, how could it follow up Adventure, since Kirby not only found what worked, but there's seemingly nothing more you can add? How do you follow that up? The answer to that is Animal Buddies. Kirby's Dream Land 2 introduced these animal buddies that gives your acquired copy abilities different effects for each animal. Rick's electric attack is a beam that goes down in a 45-degree angle, while Kind the Fish would just have a light bulb that could be launched as a projectile. These additions, as well as the more engaging side quests with the rainbow drops, just make this game more fun to complete than Adventure. While I respect Dreamland 1 for starting the series and Adventure for including the copy abilities, Dreamland 2 is unquestionably the better experience for me, and the best way to play this game is on a Super Game Boy. Just look at all this color, I love it! Number 2. The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. Here's a Zelda game that doesn't get talked about by the Zelda fanbase that much. In fact, Game Boy aficionados remember this game more fondly than the Zelda fanbase, it seems. It's not that this game is ignored, it's just not brought up in a conversation that much. Regardless, Link's Awakening is the 4th entry in the Zelda series, and a follow-up to the highly revered A Link to the Past for the Super Nintendo. Despite being more linear in terms of dungeon progression, I do like the additions of the shield being usable, whereas you can map it to a button and you can use it in combat situations like against those spiked shell enemies that you can flip upside down by using your shields. And the Cape Feather actually introduces some platforming to the top-down perspective since it allows Link to jump. Little things like these make the game so much fun for me, as well as Koholint Island itself, from interesting NPCs to talk to the story of the game actually being a lot less cliche and more experimental with how Link is trapped on this island and cannot leave until the Windfish is awakened. Meanwhile, this island is slowly being taken over by these nightmares you encounter at various dungeons, which sometimes takes the form of enemies you fought before in previous entries like Moldorm. Now, if you weren't a huge fan of A Link to the Past, I would actually recommend trying this entry out. While I prefer the dungeons and semi-non-linear form of progression in A Link to the Past, making it the better game for me, I have heard a few people say that they vastly prefer Link's Awakening over its predecessor. It's definitely one of the more unique entries in the series, and easily in my top 5 favorite Zelda games. Well, if we're talking about the DX version for the Game Boy Color, it has an exclusive Color Dungeon side quest, and I am a side quest gamer, so I automatically like that. And I like color, even if the visuals in both games aren't as visually stunning as you would want them to be. And for some reason, if you can't get a hold of the color version, the black and white version is still an excellent time. But as fun as this Game Boy game is, I don't go back to it as often as a certain 2D platformer, making it shy away from the number 1 spot. And that certain 2D platformer would be number 1. Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins. This is the last time you'll see Mario's face on this list, I promise, because the video is over after this. Super Mario Land 1 was a neat little launch title for the Game Boy in 1989, but it was really short, containing only 12 levels, and Mario's controls were rather stiff. It didn't ruin the game for me, as it was designed around that, but like the original Super Mario Bros., it's by no means a perfect game. Super Mario Land 2, however, is still an excellent time thanks to being able to choose any of the 6 worlds at the start, after the intro stage of course. Retrospectively speaking, instead of the typical grassland, desert, tundra, swamp, and lava world we've come to expect, we have a tree, space, a mansion where everything is huge, a Halloween-themed land, a giant Mario robot, for some reason, and of course the submarine and whale. And the goal is to beat the 6 main bosses in order for Mario to take back his castle from Wario. Wait, Mario had a castle? When did this happen? Other than some occasional slowdowns, Super Mario Land 2 is one of the most ambitious games in the series, in addition to one of the best Game Boy games itself. It's a breath of fresh air back when the Mario series constantly found new ways to be different than all of the other platformers out in the market, and even today, when comparing it to all the Mario entries, is still one of the best entries in the series. And that is a remarkable feat for a portable title. For these reasons, as well as being the most fun game I've played on the handheld, this is the one Game Boy game I recommend above all. You're still here? Still watching the video? What, you want me to dismiss you? Alright, here's your dismissal. Go play these Game Boy games. Most of them are on the 3DS. That's how I played most of these. Oh, you probably want your conclusion. Okay. Thank you all so much for watching, and remember to stay awesome. You happy? Okay. Alright, I gotta edit in the credits.